He's in North Yorkshire. Hello, Kevin.
Hello there, mate.
How you
Thanks
doing?
for taking the call.
Not at all.
Fine,
What can I do for you?
Yeah. I was just on the lady that was has just published the book on fear, Project Fear,
Yes.
as it were. I'm really not surprised that the goes down this role. I mean, when we look at how education over the last 50 years has indoctrinated people with the use of negative messaging, where now people, I mean, you look at the media in general, there is very little on television nowadays, and particularly the mainstream media, where fear isn't used, or there isn't a message hidden within every aspect, be it a television series. There's usually messaging in it.
Yeah.
Increasingly now, you see, even in media, usually local news, the use of music in news, which is designed to draw people down a specific route of how to feel.
Yes, it's kind of movie making and techniques, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's exactly the same. You know, the government has gone from a conservative government where people are given information and then asked to make their decisions, to government knows best, and we will guide you down these routes, and we will see you through this. And as you quite often expressed, people are amazingly, and Julia, have expressed that people are amazingly open to this, and in fact encourage it.
Yeah. It's almost like they want to be. It's like they want to be told how to behave, and they want to be told what to do, because somehow that makes their life easier.
Well, this is how over the last 20th century, or through the 20th century, governments have manipulated and controlled people, usually to hugely detrimental effect. And it's not surprising that governments like ours decide to use it, because it is so effective. It's so effective,
and really
I think it's a direct result of where ideology has been allowed to seep into education. These people that are running the media and the organisations have come through this school of thought.
Yes, and I think, like Laura said, we've been softened up for this for a long time, because if you think about it, what people like the Chief Medical Officer's department used to do was do interviews with the Daily Telegraph and say, only drink 1 glass of red wine a week and then you'll be fine. You know, they used to just tell you how to eat, how to drink, how to behave. Now it's gone sort of full over-the-top body snatcher mad.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the Marxist era, it was done in with posters and news and specific types of drive. Now it's done through the media, and it's done incredibly effectively.
Yeah,
it's something that has been allowed to happen over the last, until we start taking ideology out of education and re-educate people as to being able to think, not what to think. It won't change. It just simply won't change.
No. And how do you react to it all? Are you feeling robust to stand up to it?
Well, robustness is one thing, but an ability to believe that it will change easily is another. It's incredibly depressing.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, until people wake up to it and start saying no to it, increasingly, then it won't change. It is incredibly depressing when you see. I've stopped watching mainstream media. I've stopped watching a lot of television. Even when you go to bodies like Netflix or Prime, even the series that they put on there, every series has got a message in it, or several messages.
Right.
And it's pushed every aspect of television.
Yeah. Stick to Goodfellas and Apocalypse Now, mate. That's what I do. The real world. It's great stuff. Kevin, thank you for your call. Very important call, that, by Kevin, because he speaks for a lot of people that they're fed up, sick to the back teeth, mind you, of all of this nudge politics, all of this kind of advice, all of this guidance. I don't need any bleeding guidance, okay? I've been alive for plenty of time. I've been alive a very long time. And some people might have been surprised by the fact that I'm still alive, given some of the things that I've done with my life. When I lived in New York when I was in my 20s, in the 80s, you should have seen some of the stuff we got up to. I didn't sleep for days at times. But here I am. And I don't need anyone in government, particularly Matt Hancock, Boris Johnson, Chris Whitty, or any of you other bozos telling me what to do. Thanks very much. Is that clear? And let's go to Yvonne, though, first of all, who's in Stratford-upon-Avon, beautiful part of the world. Yvonne, very good morning to you.
Oh, good morning, Mike.
Thank you very much for calling. What can I do for you?
Well, I do love talk radio because it does invite discussion about issues, and we're not all expected to think the same thing.
No.
You do expect alternative point of views. Obviously, sometimes some people talk on your programme and say things when they are very intelligent people, but they say things that I find quite questionable.
Okay.
I think sometimes people take an oversimplistic view of very complex issues, and obviously everything to do with COVID-19 is very complex. And I do think there needs to be a really full inquiry about how the infection spread within this country, who was affected by it, and what else could have been done in a more appropriate way. For example, isolation hospitals, so that other things could have carried on in a much more normal way.
I mean, do you have any confidence, though, that the government, who have behaved, in my view, not exactly in a very transparent manner, will have a very transparent inquiry?
I don't have very much confidence in politics in general, but
no, I don't blame you.
We can hope.
What do you think that was done wrong, or is there anything you want to say that we should have done that we didn't do, or that we are doing that we shouldn't be doing?
Well, obviously, individuals have to take responsibility, and I did write to my MP after the Dominic Cummings thing, where his irresponsible behaviour set the tone for everything else after that, so that people weren't respectful of other people's risk-taking, because, we can decide to take a risk for ourselves, but if we're going to be doing something, we have to be sensitive to other people's feelings about risk.
What does that mean, though? Well, if you're taking a risk, surely you're taking a risk. If somebody else doesn't want to take a risk, then they don't take that risk.
Well, no, because obviously things to do, you've quoted things to do with riding a motorbike and say, oh, well, I don't ride a motorbike.
No, I don't.
I don't like the risk. But obviously there are a whole load of things within this country where people have to undertake training, they have to act responsibility or be dealt with by the law. And you have to accept that other people make decisions on that, whether we agree with it or not. I'm not sure what point. I'm not sure what point you're making, Yvonne. Well, I'm saying that when I go out, I'm not wearing a mask now because I don't think the risk where I live is significant at all. Okay. But I do keep my distance from everybody that I talk to, and I try to avoid getting too close to people that are exercising. And I know people say about, wearing a mask outside isn't necessarily any benefit. There's no evidence that the virus travels in the air. But I think there's plenty of evidence that it does. You've only got to walk past a wisteria that's blowing out its scent for, miles and miles around to know that if the scent from a wisteria is floating in the air, viruses are floating in the air. But if you're wearing a mask, can you smell the wisteria or not? I can smell the wisteria now because I'm not wearing a mask. No, but if you were wearing one, could you still smell it? No. You sure? No, you couldn't. I'm pretty sure you can't. Mm-hmm. You can't. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. But I would. If you're standing in a room and somebody starts up a car, which is inside that room, and you smell the exhaust without a mask or with a mask, I don't think it makes any difference. I think it would help prevent you inhaling some of the toxins, and certainly it would help you if you were in a room with somebody that was smoking. Right. So I know for a fact that when I was at work, in the office I was in had what we called sick office syndrome. Yeah. And everybody was ill all the time. Nobody could ever recover fully from whatever had been going around before it. But that could have been in the air conditioning system, right? That could have been in the air conditioning system, and if you were wearing a mask, it wouldn't have made any difference. I'm just saying that I subsequently adopted a practice of being very careful about what I did with my hands after I handled something that somebody had passed to me in terms of paperwork. I sanitised my keyboard, and the amount of infections that I got was reduced. Yeah, but that's all great. No, Yvonne, what you're describing is what you do to keep yourself safe, which is absolutely fine. Nobody would suggest that you shouldn't be able to do any of that if that's what you want to do. But if you want to tell everybody else to do it, even though you don't work with them, or that they do something completely different, that's probably, I would say, unreasonable, isn't it? I'm not saying that you've got to dictate to everybody what everybody else does. I'm saying that making people aware of what risks there are and what they can do to help minimise the risk to themselves and other people can only be of benefit. It's not fear-mongering. Well, that depends how you do it, though, doesn't it? Exactly, and I do think.
I mean, I don't need to be told, for example, when I'm walking through a railway station to wash my hands constantly, or just to keep left or to keep right, or to walk behind this arrow, or to keep 2 meters away from somebody. I really don't wish to live a life where everywhere I go there's a sign telling me to be kind. They can get stuffed.
I would hope everybody's got the message by now, yeah. And obviously, I am somebody that I think I'm at relatively low risk because I'm not overweight, I eat healthily, I exercise well.
Doesn't stop you getting run over by a bus, though, does it?
It does, if I'm careful watching.
Well, no, it doesn't, because if somebody's driving a bus in a reckless manner and you happen to be unlucky on any particular day, something could happen that's unexpected.
Well, yes, obviously. But having said that,
you could get on a plane that crashes. Wouldn't be your fault.
I'm not going to deliberately walk out in front of a bus, am I? I'm going to try and jump out. I had somebody the other day.
Sometimes buses come up on the pavement.
There was a bicycle on a pedestrian and cycle path that I walk on regularly with my small dog, and this person had actually crossed over on a road towards where I was walking in a way that made me have to jump into the hedge out of his way.
That's a cyclist for you.
And he was with a young child who, because he cut them up, the child fell off their bicycle. Yeah. And I was concerned for both of them, really.
I know. But this is the trouble. We live in a world where things happen by accident. People have accidents because that's what they're called. They're accidents because nobody expected them to happen.
Yeah, and obviously I'm glad that things are opening up. But we do need to be cautious, and we do need to be respectful of each other. I know wherever I've been, and I am connected with people that are involved in the hospitality trade, and have been for very many years. And I've done everything I can during this pandemic to try and be supportive by having takeout food, and when you can go and get takeout and support people, I've been doing that. At the end of April, I went down to Dorset and stayed in self-catering accommodation, and we went to a pub, and everybody that we met in Dorset was having an absolutely great time, and all the people where we went and used hospitality were really, really pleasantly surprised at how supportive people were being. Yeah. And they expressed surprise at the generosity of the tips that I gave. But I do think we all need to be conscious of the fact that they aren't having as much footfall, and we do, if we are financially okay, like I am, need to be more supportive.
Yes. Well, listen, there's a lot of points there, Yvonne, for us all to take in. Thank you for making them. Appreciate your call. Yvonne, I think, is just literally a supporter of everybody being decent and nice to one another, which is great. I agree with that. Unfortunately, not everybody is very nice, and not everybody is very decent. And so all you can really do is hope for the best in many cases. I mean, you can't stop people being drug dealers by allowing them to continue to be drug dealers. You have to arrest people who go around driving about in cars threatening other people. You have to arrest people for drunk driving. You have to arrest people for taking drugs. You have to arrest people for breaking the law, generally speaking. That's what happens. If you want to live in a society where nobody does any of that, good luck. I don't know where that would be, to be honest. Maybe Jersey. I don't know. But then you've got to worry about the French coming and nicking all your fish. It's not a perfect world, people. You just got to get around it and deal with it. This is Talk Radio. Yeah, let's go to the phone straight away. Talk to Daniel. He's in Hampshire. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Mike.
How you doing, sir?
I'm okay, thank you.
Good man. What can I do for you?
Just a couple of things. Just harping back to your chat that was on earlier, talking about the Indian variant.
Yes.
For work, I have to talk to people in India, and I talk to people in the USA, and I would agree with his point that there isn't much of a panic actually in India about this. Of course, there's concern, but there's not mass panic. I mean, it is a country where 1,200 people die a day of starvation, and 2,000 die of TB. So these kind of figures aren't as scary as they've been made out to be if you're actually living in India. Anyway, they don't seem to be panicking over it at all or having meltdown over it. And again, in the US, talking to those guys, they're aware of the Indian variant, but there is no mass meltdown of it. And I was just reading the USA Today, and if I can quote from that,
yes,
quickly, blah blah blah. Experts say it's not likely to cause much harm here because of high vaccination rates.
The health service and the health care system is not under stress, but they're keeping an eye on it, and we have no reason to believe the vaccine response to this strain will be a problem.
No. But it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I actually heard one of these sage characters yesterday saying, well, the thing is, if it is very much more transmissible than other variants, and if a lot of people do get infected, there could be a situation where an awful lot more people end up in hospital. And you go, you've just made a statement there with about 4 assumptions in it, none of which are apparently true.
Well, exactly. Yeah, well, haven't we heard it before with the South African variant and the Brazil variant that are going to cause a meltdown? I mean, I'm sure these things need to be taken seriously and looked at, but I don't understand why we have to have these wild modelling assumptions and this, quite frankly, scaremongering.
Yes, and also surely now we can take things in the round, Daniel, and I don't know what business you're in, but, there's a lot of businesses that haven't been able to operate, and if they can't operate in June the way that they have been led to believe that they can, they're finished, they're going down. And in the end, you have to assess risk in a way which is, permissible to assess everything else. You can't just assess one thing and go, oh, that's dangerous, we can't do anything. It's a bit like me saying, well, a terrorist might come to the basement of this building, might plant a bomb might go off, building might collapse, I might die.
Well, exactly, Mike. I mean, we can't live our lives in if, buts and maybes and mights, can we?
No, exactly right. Exactly right. Very well said. Thank you for the call. Daniel in Hampshire, they're saying in America, they're not concerned about the Indian variant. In India, they're not as concerned about the COVID infection rate as we are here in England about what it's badly like in India. Because in India, people are pragmatists. They don't have a great health service. They have an awful lot of poor people. They have an awful lot of people getting coronavirus because they don't have a vaccine. There's all manner of reasons why things are bad in India. But the Indian variant situation in this country is nothing like what the COVID situation is in India in any event. And actually, if you analyse it quite scientifically, the rate of COVID infection in India at the moment is less than it was in this country when it was at its worst. So, take your pick and get started to think that maybe it's time to start lobbying your MP and start lobbying the government to actually ensure that what they said they were going to do, they are going to do. Let's talk to Vicky, though, who's in Harlow. Hello, Vicky.
Hello, Mike. How are you?
Very well indeed. What can I do for you?
I'm just ringing, really, to support everything that everyone's been saying today, calling in. Firstly, the vaccination and the push against the people that have chosen not to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
I'm not an anti-vax at all. I have a 10-year-old child. He's had all his vaccines. I've been vaccinated when I go abroad. At this precise second in time, I'm choosing not to have the COVID vaccination.
Okay.
Got nothing against it. Think the rollout's been brilliant. Think everything else has been great. I'm choosing not to have it because I don't feel I need it. I'm perfectly healthy.
Yeah.
Not choosing to go abroad this year at the minute. Wear a mask on the beach in Portugal. But I feel that now it's like it's been we've been blackmailed into having to have it. If you don't have it, 21st of June's not going to happen. We were told that most of the population were taking it.
Yeah.
I just feel that.
Well, they keep changing the rules, don't they? They keep moving the bleeding goalposts.
Always changing the rules. It was the vulnerable and the elderly, which I completely supported. Then it was the over 50s. Now it's that if you're not getting vaccinated, you're going to spread this Indian variant. For my job, I've worked throughout, and I worked in property management in Ilford and Ealing, where all the hotspots were.
Yeah.
I haven't had COVID once. I've never taken it home once. Always sanitised my hands. I think it's all of this is about practicing common sense. And I'm just so sick to death of being blackmailed, slightly being looked down on by even family and friends for choosing not to have it. I've got nothing against people that don't have it, and I just feel that it's all propaganda, blackmail to try and persuade us to have it.
Absolutely. And you're quite right to say this, Vicky, because the next thing that will happen, and they've already started saying it, is when do they stop? And I've said this to several sides, is when do they stop vaccinating? At what age do they stop? 18? What happens if they go below 18? I don't want my kids vaccinated. Why would I agree to that? And if I don't agree to it, what are they going to say?
Yeah, that's my concern. And I just feel right now, again, hats off to the way the program's rolled out. I'm glad people feel safer with it, but my son never had the flu. nasal thing up his nose. Because again, we never had it with kids, and we were quite feral. And he's a real healthy 10, nearly 11-year-old boy. And it's just, and I just think whatever happened to personal choice. You've got Andrew Lloyd Webber, I read this morning, saying that non-vaccinators are as bad as drink drivers.
Yeah, I know.
To me, I just find that offensive. I've worked throughout this pandemic. You know, we provide accommodation for homeless people. I travel thousands of miles a month with work, and all of a sudden now I'm as bad as a drink driver. I just think, who are you talking to?
Well, he's a big fan of masks as well, Andrew Lloyd Webber. He's the one that brought him in for Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I just find it quite offensive. And what I find even more offensive is that people that I think have normally, over years of knowing them and loving them, have lost all common sense. And that's what really worries me, is that common sense are highly intelligent people that I've worked and friends and family for years. I just feel like all common sense has gone out the window, and I'm just so worried about our future. And I'd love to sit down with you and Kevin and have a drink in a pub and put the world to rights.
Well, listen, we'll look out for the next one we're going to do and come along. We'll be very glad to see you. Great call, Vicky. Thank you very much indeed. What a sensible woman. Common sense is not dead. It's just resting. People have to find it. Make sure you've got friends that have got it and talk to them, because that's what we need to keep doing. Absolutely right. Julia is in Birmingham. Hello, Julia.
Hi, lovely to speak to you, Mike.
What can I do for you, Julia?
Well, if you can find common sense, please tell me where it is.
Well, this is the home of common sense. It's right here. And if everyone who listens gets it.
Yesterday, I went into my bank. Fortunately, I didn't have to queue outside.
Right.
I was about the third in. And one of the staff came up to me and she says, "What do you want today?" And I said, "I want to go to the counter." And she said, "No, what is it you want at the counter?" I said, "Cash." And she said, "How much? Is it over £500?
Right.
Now, I was in the queue and she's asking me these questions, people all around. And I said, "It's £500 I want."
Yeah.
And she says, "Well, you can go to the ATM that was inside." I said, "No, I want to go to the counter because I want 5, 10s and 20s.
Right.
So I want to go to the counter."
You know what, you don't want it all in tenors, you mean?
That's right.
Yeah.
And she said, "No, you're not going to the counter. Go to the ATM. And then when you've got your £500, you can get back in the queue. You won't lose your place.
No.
You can come back here, take your £500 cash to the counter.
No way.
And tell them what you want."
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that was TSB.
That's mad. Absolutely mad. What did you do?
Well, when I got to the counter, I said to the girl, I said, "This used to be a great bank." I said, "But I've noticed the staff have all changed." I said, "So, really, that is why we're in the state we're in." I said, "But I'm going to make a complaint." And she said, "You might get us all the sack, then you won't have a bank to come to."
Dear me. Well, it sounds like they're not in the right job. Dear goodness me. I tell you what, Julia, thank you very much indeed for that. What a nightmare. What is going on? You know, the trouble is there are an awful lot of idiots in this country. And unfortunately, many of them seem to be in charge of stuff. Luckily, though, we are not idiots here at Talk Radio.